And welcome, everyone. This is another episode of the Keepers of Queskatan, Confronting the Caves of Chaos. And this is session 32 of our Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition Greyhawk campaign. Um, I'm joined today by Leah, who plays Sparrow, our half-elf druid. And if you've been following along, um, druids actually play a pretty significant role in this campaign. They're kind of one of the central adversaries, in this campaign, and it's the first time that I've ever used druids to this extent, and certainly the first time that I've ever used them as an antagonist class. Usually, you don't come across druids as an antagonist class, and so that was one of the twists I wanted to put into this. And the party, the party came together in this last session. For the first time, everybody was back together. And let me bring in Mirador. Hello, Mirador.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Um, so, for those of you that are joining in, Mirador is our human cleric of Farlagan. And so I was just explaining, Mirador, how druids in this campaign actually play a significant role in the campaign you know as an antagonist class, which is kind of a weird twist. I would argue it was certainly not something that you normally would see druids as being potentially the bad guys. And um and the group actually had a major revelation as to the root of that oddity. So if you wanted to talk about that, you certainly can just start off with that.
The druid Avant has a definite dislike of humanoids other than human itself, and he has joined the guy who challenged the head druid and lost, and basically split away in this dark druid group, and he is our antagonist.
Yes. So, Mirador, did you want to add to that, or?
Oh, well, I thought it was interesting last time when we discussed the possibility that even though you would normally think of a druid as, I mean, druids are supposed to be true neutral, we were discussing the possibility that because they believe maybe these villains that we're perceiving as villains are don't see it that way. They see that they are, obtaining some kind of balance in their own perspective, and therefore they maybe their own belief that they haven't deviated is the way they're able to still keep their power. That's one
Right.
thing we were speculating about.
Yeah. The and as a cleric character, you would actually know. We were just having that conversation too before we went live. Was that you know characters will have knowledge that the players don't necessarily have. And that's where I come in as the DM to actually feed your character that information, and then you by that nature of that end up with it as well. And um, and I'll probably do that a little bit more often now as your characters are becoming much more experienced within your classes. They're going to start having probably more knowledge about things based on their class than you might have as a player. And so, and then it'll be up to you whether or not you share that information with the rest of the party. So it's not going to be me breaking in, basically out of character and saying, all right, everybody, this is what Sparrow understands. I will be able to, using Roll20 or whatever, send a little message to just Leah so that then she can turn and say, well, this is what my character, or this is what Sparrow believes, and go from there. So it'll be a way to create that next layer or level of character knowledge, and that separation between player character and character knowledge to do that. So what you as a cleric would understand is that the domains of a deity actually play a much greater role than alignment. In that, so you worship the deity Farlagan, and if we go into what Farlagan's domains are, those are how you demonstrate your devotion, is by following those domains, and demonstrating those, and and that's how you kind of conduct yourself within the society, is that you're demonstrating these domains, and people will see that. They're not going to see, oh, well, you're lawful neutral or you're whatever. They'll see, oh, you're a cleric that travels around a lot, or you're leaving little offerings at the roadside, to maintain a safe passage or whatever. That's how you're going to demonstrate your devotion to your deity. So when I started thinking about this particular campaign idea, and I looked at the deity Wastree. All right, so Wastree's domains are bigotry, amphibians, and self-deception. And I believe it was Cedric that actually started piecing it together when he said, well, wait a second, if their deity is a deity of self-perception, then self-deception, then maybe, and as you put it as well, maybe it's just that their understanding is that they're within the scope of what a druid would think, and then you take the bigotry part, and when you combine that, now you have it where they develop that idea of demi-humans are a violation of the natural order of of things. They're an abomination, especially half breeds are an abomination of what nature has designed. And the druids seem to be making that separation between beings that they see as magical in nature, which would be your elves and your dwarves, and to a lesser extent halflings, which is another thing that I kind of took from Tolkien. All right, so if you think about the halflings in Tolkien, as the ages go on, going from the third age into the fourth age, possibly because the halflings had, some of the halflings had drank the Entwash, and that's why they're getting taller. But also, Middle Earth is losing its magic. That's like one of the themes behind it, is that the age of man is coming, and all of these magical races are kind of receding, either going out west or just disappearing. and halflings, seem to be becoming more human over time. And so I think that's the evolutionary idea. So when it came to thinking about, well, how could I use halflings in this issue? That's where I came up with the idea that, well, halflings are the least magical of the demi-humans, and so they would be more vulnerable to lycanthropy. They would be the initial target of this this druidic. It's more of a druidic cult than it is a druidic enclave, and so that's kind of where the big idea for the campaign kind of evolved, and that's the realization. So I'm not like revealing anything that you didn't kind of as a group come across and stumble upon and start piecing these puzzles together. You still don't know where its next phase is going to go, but that's where you are as a party at this point right now. And in this last session 32, even though you started you went back and you started facing some creatures, goblins and hobgoblins again. So you're coming across, but you did encounter for the first time a human cleric of Waystream. And did you guys want to talk about that encounter with him?
He was hiding in the back.
Mhm.
He didn't want to be targeted very easily, which is
Yeah, you. Yeah,
understandable. But
Mirador, you were going to say? Sorry.
No, I was just saying it was like it does it may have gone along with what the druids were feeling as well, and that like, well, these other races that are in here are just my pawns, so I'm gonna let them interact first, and see what I have to do after. He was in the back. He wasn't leading. He wasn't leading from the front. He was leading from the rear.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's you've kind of seen that with Avant as well. Was that Avant tended to be always ready to run, kind of thing. So he was always looking for an exit. He always had an exit strategy. Um, that was with him, and on basically the three occasions that you encountered him, that's always what he was looking to do. Um, was always looking to remove himself from the situation once things started turning bad. Now, this cleric here, what really stumbled him up was the fact that you cast well, not you.
Yeah, it was me.
Was it? Oh, it was you. You cast
Yeah.
the silence.
Yeah.
The silence spell, which basically eliminated virtually everything that he was prepared to do. So and it was kind of a surprise, as I'm looking through and I'm like, all right, well, what spells does he have here? And so every spell that he was like, I was like preparing for him to do it. I'm looking through all the first and second level spells, and I'm like, well, geez, everything has a verbal component. So he was
Mhm.
basically, screwed, in that sense. And then he just had to resort to, actual combat. Especially since in the room setting that you had him in, he really couldn't go anywhere. So he was kind of
Yeah, I mean,
trapped
I
in
think
that.
if I remember correctly, there were two doors to the room, but he
Right.
was behind both of them, so he would have had to fight through them
Yeah, he would
to
have
get
had
to an
to.
exit.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah, he was probably counting on his bodyguards to handle anything. Um, and they just couldn't. There was just too much. Too much from your party for them to deal with, because he had a hobgoblin chieftain, and a total of 6, fairly tough hobgoblins actually. So there was a good sized number of individuals in that room that he was probably banking on. He just didn't, probably didn't anticipate a party of 8, you know, um, fairly seasoned now, 8 seasoned adventurers. And so that was just something that, he probably wasn't anticipating. And so, yeah, it was a great, again, it was a great, a great call. Um, let's see, in this particular session, what I really liked about this particular session was that everybody was kind of mixed in and got into it, and I think much of that had to do with the change that the players, you guys, actually elected to do, was that you were going to split up your multiple attacks to being on the front end and then the back end, of the combat, and as opposed to getting your multiple attacks in one shot. And that will, I think, really change the nature of combats going forward. Especially since you're going to start rising into the levels where your sleep spells aren't going to work to the same extent, and so on, or eventually your sleep spells aren't going to work on anything but the lowest level minions that you're facing. um the other rule that I like that you guys started to use was the when you are fighting something under 1 hit die, the fighter classes get those additional multiple attacks on them. So if you do start facing what I would consider fodder later on in in your questing, that those will those will go down as fast as like sleep spells. So it's like that
Yeah.
that I'm looking forward to really get that kind of whirlwind kind of combat sequences, from the three fighter classes in the party. So the paladin will be dishing that out, Amalric, the fighter magic user, and pure fighter Angus now
Yeah.
will start dishing out those things. The other thing, now I see that we have quite a few viewers here. The other thing with first edition AD&D, and one of the things that I kind of I'm regretful for using, I mean, we still got to keep it, but I never really I didn't realize how overpowered point blank is. It's like that point blank range and that extra damage die for being in point blank is
Well,
really
and
pretty
I think
devastating.
you've actually already nerfed it a little bit because it's not an extra die. I think it's actually double damage. You've already toned it down. We've already done a kind of a compromise because it was double damage. I think it's actually double damage, and that's even more abusive. Yeah,
Yeah, it was way too much. I was like, gosh, it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I didn't want to have to get to the point of just trying to make the situation so hard to do close combat with a bow. um or though sometimes you're not going to be in the position of doing that, but it is a very complicated thing, to reconsider. All right, well, who's going to be able to attack, with 8 party members and in some of these narrow spaces. I do consider that. That's why in that one time when you got ambushed by the kobolds, I think it was, only
Only
3 of you were actually, yeah,
only the
they
center could attack.
yeah, only the center could attack. The rest couldn't actually get in there because it was just a narrow, more narrow hallway, especially since they were coming up through, you know, um, from the side and through like an enclosure. So it was just impossible for the whole party, to move in there. And the other time that occurred was when net trap had come down over a number of you, and it was a very sticky, tarred up net, and acted almost like a web spell, and you had to kind of work your way very slowly past that, to be able to get up to the front.
That gave me an opportunity to use a new spell that I had before, that precipitation spell. To try to
Yes,
keep them
yes.
so that they couldn't light them on fire, because that would have
Yeah.
been bad if we took fire damage from all that.
Oh yeah, that would have been
Oh,
really
yeah.
bad if that, if they did do that. So that was certainly a great use of a utility spell.
I
The
think
other thing that go ahead.
I think my entangle is working well with the ball of
Yes.
vines.
Yeah. So you're basically walking around with these, entanglement grenades that, as long as you have that, you can use those, and then just, that becomes the spell component for entangle for you. So that
Yeah.
another, really great use of, of just the way your spells are supposed to work, and you added your own component to it, so that works out really well, as far as it just making sense. It makes sense that that's what a druid would carry with them. So let's see. Well, we have quite a few people watching. If anyone has any, questions or comments, you're free to, to leave comments in there, and we'll address those as well. So if you have just joined in, we're talking about our AD&D First Edition Greyhawk campaign. The party, it's a party of 8 characters. Really good mix of character classes. So we have 3 fighter types: a fighter magic user, and a paladin. We have 1 thief. We have 2 clerics and a druid. So the party has a really good mixture of and a pure magic user as well. So a fighter magic user and a magic user. So there is quite a bit of overlap. However, especially with the clerics, we have 1 cleric that's more of a utility cleric, and that's Mirador, and then the other cleric is a pure healer, usually after the combat is over with.
Yes, we have 8 players for the 8 characters.
Yes, 8 players for 8 characters. Yeah, so no doubling up, and everybody is. The party used to be, or it was very briefly 10, but it never launched with 10. So we didn't get out of session 0 with 10. We started session 1 with 9 players, and then in our 4th session, we had 3 players drop out and 3 players jump in. And so the current party of 8 have been together since session 4, and we're into session 32. Did you use a caller ever? Yeah, I mean, the players do kind of declare what they're going to do, and they call off, and they even delay. Like, one of the things I liked with this group is that once in a while the archers who would normally go first, they will hold off and let the magic users cast their their sleep spells, and the 2 magic users talk with one another as well prior to, and they do a lot of pre-planning, or almost like set plays, like like a professional sports team would have. And so they have protocols that they follow, and different procedures as to how they're going to open up a door. And this is one of the first few groups that I've ever seen where, at least in my experience, maybe it is common, but the point person is the thief. The thief is always right at the point there, and then he has 2 backups, and they form kind of a, 3 up front, 4 in the, 4 in the middle, and then 2 or 1 on the back end. So they they have a marching order. They're always thinking about tactics in the situation that they're in. So do you as a DM ask each player what they're going to do in a round as a player, a big group? I prefer that. Yeah, it's they often tell me what what their characters are going to do, and then we just kind of roll with it. So I don't have to ask them, at this point. We've been together for 32 sessions, so I really don't have to remind them, so what do you do? It's they kind of know what they're going to do. Now once in a while they'll say, well, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay. And we start going into that action. And then they're like, well, wait a second. Wait, I'm thinking of something else now. And it's like, oh, nope, it's that's already gone into motion. And I'm already thinking about the other characters have already started to initiate what they're going to do based on that declared action. And so we've had a couple of engagements where it got chaotic, and that was really awesome because I think it really played into the fact that if you have 9 player characters and they're fighting 32, I believe it was like 32 at the one time, 32 hobgoblins, that's going to be a chaotic action going on. I mean, it would have been much worse if they were indoors. They happened to be in an open field for that, but it was really cool. And it
Yeah, that was the
played
fun.
in.
That was
Yeah.
the fun session where I cast Sanctuary, and so you had like these guys coming at me, and they're like, "Nope, they gotta make their saves. Nope, they failed this one. Now they have to figure out who they're gonna attack next."
Yeah, it really was. It was, for myself, just trying to keep track of everything going on. And so even as I started losing kind of, just the mental control over everything, it did play into the fact that in a mass combat like that, it's going to be chaos, and that's awesome. So let's see. By session 32, you must be in the groove. Yes, we are. I mean, as a group, everything is really clicked. The party, I want to say, has taken on a personality, if that makes any sense. I'm a school teacher by trade, so I have, or I should say, by profession, uh, and I had, like, each class that I have, they do take on like a class personality. So I teach 8th grade, so we have 801, 802, 803, and 804. And so that's how they're, and each class, um like 2 of them are general ed classes, and one is a bilingual mixed class, and the other is a mixed class of both general ed and special ed students mixed into one setting. But if I look at the 2 general ed classes, they have a different dynamic, separate from them. So I think groups form a personality, especially when they're playing together for such a long time. And and it all happened organically. I don't think that Mirador and Breeze, the 2 clerics, actually sat down and said, well, you're going to be you're going to focus on healing, and I'm going to focus on on support type of spells. It just evolved that way.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they do sometimes coordinate now, and they'll say, well, you know what, um I'm going to think about doing this while you're doing that. They coordinate. The magic users have to do that more so because they have to study their spells, ahead of time. But yeah, 32 sessions is really a lot of fun. That's still not considered in old school. It's still not considered to be a long campaign yet. But in comparison to, more modern, or fifth edition, it's 5 times longer than the average. So it's going along really well. Let's see. Jealous of a party that actually works together and pre-plans. Yeah, it's one of the advantages to having experienced, gamers. So it doesn't really require role playing, as in, people, acting out in character and that kind of thing. But role playing, I look at it more as they know the role that their character plays in the group. And I think that's actually kind of a little bit more important. I my magic users know what spells they want to focus on, for their anticipated next action. Go ahead, Leah.
I want to point out that I don't think we have immature players. Everyone has had not only experience, but life experience in
Hmm.
getting along.
Yeah, there's no yeah, we have no drama. There's no like neediness. Um, and I've played with younger players, as young as like 14, who were, who were more mature. Than I had another player that was 66, and the 14-year-old was much more mature than the 66-year-old. You know what I'm saying? There's a different measure of maturity sometimes. I mean, I started playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons when I was 11, and that was our whole group. Was, we were a bunch of 11-year-olds, and so um it really depends on how you're coming at the game, and how mature you are, mentally and emotionally, than mature in age, obviously. So yeah, it's putting together a party of this size, which again is was larger than I was anticipating. I was originally thinking of attracting like 16 players, or maybe 15 players, and then breaking it up into, three groups, of five, and going very traditional. But then I was like, you know what? I just don't have 3 game sessions a week that I can put to it. And so I said, well, do I break it up into 2 parties of 8? And then the 16 never really came, or the 15 never really came together. But there was always 10 to 12 that were ready, and ready to go. And when I launched with just the 10, I was prepared to play with 10. But I was kind of happy that it did drop down to 9 and now 8. So it's a little bit more manageable. I probably wouldn't let the party go below 6, because of kind of where this campaign is looking to go. It still needs to be a large size party. So let's see. Do the players have to train? Yes, they do. They have to train. They have to pay the gold to level up, and I even started to consider. Well, they're going to do like some kind of side jobs and things like that in order to earn a little extra. And now that they're all at level 5, or some are ready for 6,
Mm-hmm.
they could start training. They could start training first level adventurers, so that they can go up, and what they would pay is actually going to go to, these player characters, so that they can now earn some money. And I forgot, I wrote the system down where it's like, well, based on their wisdom or their intelligence, based on the kind of character class, um how much less of a week, full week's time they have to spend, and that will give them time to actually train another character up until 9. After 9, I'm not going to make player characters have to train anymore. They're a titled level for the most part at level 9, so they should be able to self-train beyond that. But going up to 9, I impose I'm going to impose that requirement that they have to train. I also used from the Dungeon Master's Guide the rating system. So there was like the rating system between 1 and 4, right? So if they did a really excellent job, they got a 1, and the 1 was the base. I didn't make it 0 like the DMG says, though. I made the base is 240 gold pieces per level. And it's your current level going to the next. So if you're level 5, you're going to pay 240 times 5 to go to level 6, and so on. So and then if they on the rating, it's 1 for 1. If they score 1, an excellent job. It's 1.5 times if they scored a 2. It's twice as much if they scored a 3. And a 4, there was always a chance with the Never Done, actually overall had a 4, but a 4 would be either 4 times or they couldn't actually train on that session. They needed to have some kind of a success, somewhere along the line in order to be able to train. So they could actually blow their training altogether. But like I seriously doubt that, it'll be either a total party kill or it'll be, a 3. I don't see a 4 happening without a total party, because that's like a, terrible, terrible session, for them to go through. So I don't see it happening, but let's see. My area, there's more lame players. You know what? I have the advantage of playing online. So my players are coming from all over, all over the United States, obviously. Although I've played games with people from different parts of the world, Australia and the Netherlands, Norway, uh, Germany. I think one person from Russia, one from Israel. So I mean, all over the place. Couple from Brazil. So that's the one advantage to playing online exclusively, is that because there's no game stores around here. I'd have to drive half an hour, 40 minutes away to get to the nearest local gaming shop. Yeah, level 5 is kind of like, so now you're going to get into that next level band of 5 to 7. And I use official adventures, like, so currently, as you can see by the graphics there. I mean, they're doing Keep on the Borderlands, but they're doing a very modified version of Keep on the Borderlands. So it's essentially using a majority of the map, not even 100% of the map, and it's using some of the background of it, but everything that's packed inside it is going to be dramatically different. And it might have that underlying theme, but the underlying theme of the Keep on the Borderlands is kind of doesn't make sense. I've heard it was called like it's like a cooperative, for every humanoid race that you could find, all crammed into one, into one apartment complex, kind of co-op, where they're all in these, and it just made no sense. It was just it's just a tournament, a tournament adventure, but or at least it plays like that. It's certainly one of my favorite, because you could keep on going back to it. And that's what it was really designed to be. And that's how we played it back when I was an 11-year-old, playing it. It was like we went to Keep on the Borderlands and went to the Caves of Chaos over and over again, probably about 5 or 6 trips to it for various, for various reasons. And my DM back at the time didn't reveal all of the different components to it. And it was like, are you going to do the kobolds this session? You're going to do the goblins the next, the orcs here, and, the hobgoblins there. And maybe you'll do the minotaur, which is not in ours. So I'll just tip you all off. There's no minotaur in this. So you actually had were-rats instead of the minotaur. And that played into your campaign a little bit better. But anyway, level 5 is a great level band, because now you're going to go into those adventures that are 5 to 7, and you start really upping the scale of what what the players are going to encounter at that level band. One time I had the best group of experienced players, but now I pretty much just play solo. It's hard nowadays to get a good group together. Try online. As any time that I've ever advertised an old school game on Roll20, I've never had a problem filling up anywhere from 5 to 10 players. It fills up fast. I think this group filled up in 2 days, and that was up to 10 players or 11 players, and I had 3 players or 4 players waiting in the wings, just looking to join in case anybody had dropped out. So during that first month, we had a few people drop out for work reasons, because that was the other thing. I started the campaign in like August, and so that's maybe not the best time to start a campaign, especially a long campaign. So that's a little pro tip for for any new DMs out there, is to don't start your campaign just before a college like a college semester begins, or if you're like me, a school teacher, if you're going back to back to work in September. So August might not be the best month to start, and might be better off to wait until like October or something like that, past the first couple of weeks of either school or college or work kind of thing. So certainly try online. I think you'll have a good chance of putting together a group of players. And when you put that it's an old school game, whether it be D&D BX or AD&D First Edition, you're probably going to attract. I want to say you might attract older players, which might be more experienced players for the most part. But even if you're attracting younger players, just the fact that they're going to be more open to playing an older edition, you might be getting somebody who's open to trying something that's at least reputed to be a little bit more challenging. And so you might get someone who's a little bit more mature, and ready to ready to play D&D that's more restrictive, so fewer classes, fewer races, and usually worlds that are either homebrewed, or in our case we're using Greyhawk, which is a very skeletal outline kind of a setting, so it leaves a lot of room for flexibility, not as laid out as like Forgotten Realms. It's just packed with information that is kind of hard to move through it without violating its lore, without there's just not enough gap in knowing things about the place, that it's not as bare bones as Greyhawk. Not that Greyhawk is like lacking of background and lore and stuff like that, but it's got, even its timeline, there's huge gaps of time that you can just insert a campaign into and not really interfere with the lore of the place that much. So something I always ask, when my players are joining for these recaps is, so what's the next thing for your character? So Leah, we already know that you want to learn you want to be able to polymorph into a sparrow. So, um, but but anyway, we'll start with you. What's the next thing for your character?
Uh, I think after Wild Shape, I'm going to be interested in trying to get some kind of a more damaging weapon.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right now. I'm not terribly concerned about worrying about where I'm headed. I'm just maintaining with the group.
Right.
But
And mirrored. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Mirador.
Well, I'm looking forward to whenever we get a chance to hopefully go back and bring that cleric or Farlagan that we encountered turned to stone back,
Hmm.
so that we can find out more about him.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So that will be a lot of fun to do. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Um, so I'll just leave it at that. There's going to be some fun stuff with that.
I'm ready
If
to be
if
out
it
of
works.
the caves of chaos.
Well, you're nearly close.
I know.
You're nearly close. So you've encountered your first cleric of wastery. So you kind of know that you're delving deep enough into the place that you're going to start moving along. So yeah, I would say maybe another 3 sessions. So and that's the other interesting thing about this particular campaign, is that even though I never really thought of it as, you guys are going to be keeping like real time, and adventuring in real time, it has
I,
really been close to that, though. I
I
mean,
need to
you're
step out for a few
sure,
minutes.
sure.
Okay, I'll try to jump back in a little while.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a little it's been kind of like on pace, right? So your characters have been traveling around probably between 30, 32, and maybe 36 weeks, of time, putting in the training sessions. And we're going into session 33 tomorrow. So all right, let's see. We have a clarification. Allow me to clarify. Quantity of players is high, quality of players is low. Too many power gamers, meta gamers. Um, well, you know what? That's where AD&D First Edition is going to clear up a lot of that power gamer stuff. Or if you're doing D&D, BX. So if you're doing just you know D&D Basic and Expert, you're going to eliminate a lot of that power gamer stuff because you're not really filled with so many different abilities, and you don't have that same and it's going to slip my mind what they call it. It's called an economy, an action economy. So you don't have, all right, I'm going to do my attack. All right, that attack didn't work, so I'm going to use I'm going to use this feature. All right, and then I'm going to use this background skill because that feature, can be enhanced by that background skill. And then if that didn't work, I'm going to use my bound ability, and so on. And oh, if that didn't work, then I'm going to try this other thing that gives me advantage, which allows me to now re-roll something. It's just layer upon layer upon layer. You have that in 5e. You don't have that in first edition. First edition is simple enough that, especially if you're starting with low level characters, I like starting all campaigns at level 1 or sometimes even level 0. And the players are now going to move forward, and as they're learning more about their character, you know, um, you know, these players really don't have to look at their character sheets, so much. They kind of know what their characters can do without looking at the character sheets. And there isn't a whole lot of looking up and everything. Now we're using Roll20, so they have their spell lists and everything there, and they could just click on it, bang, there's my spell. But when you have a simple system and you have a real simple character sheet, you're not playing the character sheet anymore. You're playing your character. It is much more opportunity for role playing when you don't have so many different skills and such. So yeah, the metagamers and trying to cheat the system or trying to come up with these synergies of actions. The only way that you get synergies of actions is when the players are coordinating with one another, using their characters. And hey, you know what? Um, I mean, it's not really a metagame for the characters, or the players to say, hey, you know what? You guys hold up on casting, on firing your arrows. We're going to cast our sleep spells, and then you use your arrows to take out anybody that wasn't taken down by those spells. Um, Even though the players are having that conversation, it's reasonable to think that the characters would have that same conversation because they kind of understand what role each of them are playing in.
I think
Yeah.
what you also have to do is talk to your players about what role they're going to do in a campaign. If they are the one who wants to be up front and right in the middle of the combat, they need to be essentially a tank.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to be the one standing back and shooting into the melee, they need to have the skill and ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If they are going to be the healer, they need to know that that's their role and they're going to do that role. If they're if they're if they have to be the one who shines every time, that's when you're going to have a problem, because you can't have somebody who's going to shine with everything. You're not the tank. You're not the one who shoots from a distance. You're not the one who heals. You've got one thing that you're supposed to be doing, and if everybody is doing that same thing, everybody's screaming over each other.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get anything accomplished.
Yeah, and
What
that's
what
especially
we
true with a large group.
what we did was we figured out where we were, uh, what our role was. I was happy when my druid spells started giving me the ability to heal.
Mhm.
So I wasn't just going, well, I can do an entangle, but I can't do it down here in this thing. But now I've got healing spells, so I can be one of the healers. It's not my primary role, but it is something I can do. My role is a support role mostly. Uh, we have people who are out front. We have people who are in the back. We have people who are in the middle casting spells. We we actually have figured out which way we want to play.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is that they also know their position, so where they're actually, where they're actually standing at, where they're moving, how they're moving. Um, you know, this all this all happened organically. This is where the characters were planning on what they're going to do, how they're going to approach this door. their marching order is even designed where they have the where they have their elves, or their characters that are able to see in the dark, better. Well, not really dark vision. You know,
Low
they have
light vision.
infravision. Yeah, infravision. And that's how they're organized in a sense, so that they have someone who can look back and see if anything's coming up on them. They have the people that are able to see forward. They have their light sources for the humans that are in the group, so that that's dispersed, correctly too. They they're just really, really well organized, and they know where everyone's at. And even when they come into a very tight space, they're still, and they learned this from hard experience. um they've learned that, because their group is large, that when they're going into these tight spaces, they have a situational awareness to understand that, we're not going to be able to all attack at one time. We have to, we have to plan differently, based on where we are in the room and how we're dispersed throughout the room, and such. So, and this is all happening in real time. This is, just, they're coordinating with each other. I'm constantly thinking about how does this all, how is this going to work out, and that's, that's the real, special thing about this group, is that everything is kind of clicking. So like it was said earlier, 32 sessions, you must really be clicking along. And yes, it is. After 32 sessions, that's where you should be at. If you're not at that point after 32 sessions, there's something going, there's something wrong. Might also be the fact that I've been playing for over 35 years. I'm an OG Grognard. Well, yeah, well, you know what? It's I wouldn't I wouldn't worry too much about, like I said, new players and younger players coming to an old school game, because they're coming into it. You have to expect that they're coming into it looking to, looking to experience that old school feel. Um, one of the things, I'm pretty sure this was Kelly had said this. He plays, at the time he was playing our ranger. Um, and he said, this is the first time in a long time that he really felt like he was playing Dungeons and Dragons. When you're trying to when you're playing an old school edition and you're playing it in an old school way, I mean, that's ultimately what you want to have happen, is to really capture that essence. And if you have newer players that have never played an old school game before, and if you can create that for them, you're going to have them hooked. You know, um, they're certainly going to be like, "Wow, this is what I was looking for," or, you know, um, "This is better than I was expecting," or, "This is just much more challenging." Because, like I said, you're not playing your character sheet; you're playing your character. You're not you don't have all of those different options and everything in an old school game. You have just what they have. And maybe in a couple levels, they'll start adding a few more things to it, but they don't get as complex as fast as more modern games do. Yes, I'm glad. I'm glad you finally got here too. So yes, the live. So if you have any questions or you want to make any comments, you're welcome to do so. So welcome, Michael. Let's see. I think at times I prefer younger, more inexperienced players. Teach them the right way to avoid bad habits. Yeah, I mean it's that was one of the things that I didn't have to do, is worry about bad habits, because really nobody in the party came with that. They were all experienced players. So and the other thing is that I don't think anyone has come to this particular table, not having played other games as well. So, it's not like they were all just AD&D first edition players. They had played other games as well. And when you have a much wider variety of games that you've played, you kind of take those things into whatever game you happen to be playing. It kind of assists you, um, in in playing them, or in certainly running them. I mean, I'm always remembering Call of Cthulhu when I'm running an AD&D first edition game, because I'm looking for those kind of weird, sinister, kind of things to throw in there. So maybe a little bit darker and grittier. Um, and I'm really having a lot of fun with this particular one, because there's a lot of insanity, a lot of as Ed said, and we just went to a whole new level of crazy, with the storyline of it. And that's kind of what I was looking to capture here. Hey Chris, how's it going? Yeah, it's not too late, but anyway, hey, I'm really looking forward to going to VentureCon, and so I saw that you said you were going to be attending VentureCon, so I'm certainly going to want to uh, check out one of your games. If you're running a game, I definitely want to sit in on that. If I actually have it right here. So Chris wrote Anchor. So I have them right here at my table. I still haven't gotten a chance to dig through everything, because these are 3 huge books, and I have to dig into them and start reviewing each section by section. But and we have Mirador back. So yeah, Chris, if you're going to run that, Chris, I definitely want to sit in on one of your games and have you have the opportunity. I probably will be running Anchor at VentureCon. Yes, I'm certainly looking forward to that. So yeah, and at least I think it's still Cedric is so our magic user is going to VentureCon, and our ranger Kelly Foote is going to, a former ranger I should say, is going to VentureCon as well. So looking forward to that as well. So let's see. I have played every edition of D&D with group. Plus, I have over 30 different RPGs I've played solo. Yeah, I'd really love to chat with you and talk about, some of the games that you've played solo, because, because that's something that, I've dabbled a little bit with it. So I played like 4 Against Darkness, and I never liked the emulators. So if you're using an emulator, I mean, I have it. I have like what's it called, the Mythos emulator. It's like a DM emulator, and there's some other books that I do have on solo play. But I found that the easiest one to use was 4 Against Darkness is the easiest one to use. That's a great system. Let's see. Are there any mechanics you don't like from first edition and you remove or alter as a DM? Yeah, there's actually quite a few. So I do not do anything psionics. I never could stand psionics. I didn't even like the monsters that are psionics. So with the exception of probably mind flayers, but everything else, like the Yankee and the slots and all of those things, I never use those. So majority of the Fiend Folio I can't stand. It's some others, like I don't really like bards. I've never considered a bard to be a true character class. However, I'm going to let Kelly play a bard if he gets to that point. But that was something that I wasn't going to do. I don't allow cavaliers. I thought that they were overpowered. Um, I didn't allow barbarians, just because we're not in that particular region of the world, so it wouldn't have made sense for barbarian being that far south. But also barbarians I found they're very, very powerful in the lower levels, but once they start getting to the upper levels, they start losing that real versatility and power, in comparison to the other classes. And since this has always been projected to be a 1 to 14 plus campaign, and maybe even 15 or 16 campaign, that the barbarian might not be able to hang at that level, so just not have that same versatility that the party might need at that point. Let's see, have you ever played? I think I got this one already. I've played we did this one already. Yes, VentureCon is going to be a great place for a lot of us that are kind of in that OSR kind of sphere to actually meet up with each other. And it's small enough. It's queued up to be just 100 players. So that'll be awesome too, because that's really only about 8 to 10 tables, and we'll really have a good chance of mixing and playing quite a bit there. So I'm looking forward to it. Yes, I've heard of Ironsworn. I might even have Ironsworn in PDF. Scarlet Heroes I haven't heard of before. But yeah, solo RPG guy, I definitely want to have a chat with you and see what we can do about about sharing some ideas and going over some games and such like that. Let's see what we can do. Maybe I'll have you on the show and we can talk about solo RPG playing. I'm sure that you probably follow Artichoke Dip on YouTube. I mean, he has a great channel, and he's one of the ones that introduced me to the idea of solo play as well. Great channel. I recommend that everyone take a look at that. So let's see. I have also never understood why the bard was created. It seems like any character could just learn to play an instrument and that cover. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I guess it comes from the bard novels, right? Where it's kind of a fighter, thief, musician kind of thing. It's very, very bizarre. It's kind of like the monks that were in the original player's handbook, and even Gary Gygax said, don't use the monks from the player's handbook, use the monks from Oriental Adventures. It's a much better concept of a monk than what he kind of had, like the European monk mixed with like a martial artist kind of, or just a hand-to-hand combat, and it just didn't really work out that well. But you use the one from if you use the one from, I just drew a blank, from Oriental Adventures, that kind of fits in better. And originally we had a monk.
Yeah, we had a monk in
the
session
first,
in or two.
yeah, like 1 or 2 sessions in, and he was he the first one to drop off? He might have been one of the first ones to drop off, or
yeah, he was one of them.
We lost a druid. We lost a druid, a monk, and a fighter.
The druid was the first one because he only showed up for the first session, the first druid, and he never came back.
Yeah, never came back. And I even gave him a dog. He even got a dog in that first session, and he just didn't come back after that. I guess he didn't like dogs. I don't know. It's very odd. It was, and we lost a magic user earlier on too. I think the party was too big for that magic user to handle. Always wanted to see psionics played as well. I disregarded them too.
I actually played a psionicist in second edition, but not in first.
Yeah. Yeah, I just never. I again, it gets back to you're adding a new layer to. Well, first of all, it's very rare for player characters to actually have psionics, but if you manage to have one, then it just added that extra layer that I always thought was kind of unnecessary. Yes, I want to bring him on as a guest. So yeah, we will set that up. So maybe we can do some type of interview one time. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I sub to Artichoke. Yeah, I think anybody that plays solo should do that. Show watch me, myself, and die. I've heard of that too. I might have even seen a few of those as well. But Artichoke Dip, I've always. So I never allowed psionics or monks. Yeah, I don't allow psionics. I was open to allowing monks because when I first started this, I was like anything that you see in first edition, I'm going to allow with a few exceptions here and there. So so I was open for a monk, but I think they're hard to play. They're not an easy class to actually play in
And when you
AD&D.
have a ranger that mows half the enemies down before you can get to melee, it kind of makes them
Yeah, I
like,
know. Yeah, yeah.
well, okay, they're all dead again.
Yeah. It's although like we said, that's going to start tapering off. It'll be a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more challenging as we go forward. So looking forward to that. Yeah, so that's in Madison, Wisconsin. It is July 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Um, and pretty full schedule all 3 days. I believe it goes from 10 in the morning to 6 or 8 o'clock at night. I think 8, 10 to 8. And the sessions run in 2 hour increments. So you can run a 4 hour session, you can run a 6 hour session, you can run a 2 hour session. And, and that's basically so however long you want to run your sessions in those 2 hour increments. So I'm looking to run 4 games during the 3 days there. So Bushido, um, oh, I just lost it. Gangbusters, the Blackest of Deaths, which is Bloat Games fantasy, like a fantasy horror type of game, like a real meat grinder kind of game, and potentially one other. I could do Star Frontiers. I do have a Star Frontiers adventure that I wrote that using the original Star Frontiers, and do that as well. Plus, I want to leave room to play games as well. So, Chris, I've always liked the idea of magic spells where all psionics in nature rather than getting a magical result simply by reading a word in Latin, but D&D never quite handled it well. Yeah. Um, I like thinking about magic as far as, what's its source. So, like, a druid, they're obviously pulling upon nature and they need those different natural elements in order to pull from. A cleric doesn't actually cast spells. A cleric receives favors from their deity in order to utilize those favors. So I've always liked calling it favors rather than spells. um, I think that plays into the character class a little bit better thematically. um, because they're not the source of magic. They're the conduit for the deity's favors. So that's how I look at it. And magic users could be the same way. I mean, there's certain things like magic users, like sorcerers, are more of a conduit as well. They're tapping into um the supernatural world in order to be able to use their things or something. I love blood magic. That's really cool stuff. So like Venger Satanis Crimson Dragon Slayer, and he uses a form of blood magic where it's like you actually burn up some of your hit points in order to cast spells, and then if you kill somebody with it, you gain some of their life force, basically to recharge yourself so that you can cast more spells, and you can cast that last spell and die. It's like it's kind of like, if you expend too much of it, then so that's cool.
And DCC has a similar mechanic with spell burn, where you can summon or siphon physical stats into your spell to get a better effect.
Yeah,
With the
yeah,
mages as well.
And DCC also has like a random spell, misfire or whatever, yeah. VentureCon is going to be awesome. I know this is becoming like a big advertisement for VentureCon, which that would be awesome, because the more people, the better. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. And it is strictly OSR, and you go there to play, be prepared to, sit down and just play. That's what we're there for. We're not there to, to utilize any safety tools other than just saying, this is what my game is about. You want to sit and play, then sit and play. And, so no X cards or any of those things. I mean, I could talk about our own group. I don't think that our group has really encountered anything that, but I'll leave it up to you to. I mean, what's the most disturbing thing, if there's been anything, that you have actually encountered in our campaign so far?
Maybe the Umber Hulk. That was
Mirador? Yeah.
Well, I wasn't actually there. I was actually on the way. I think it would have been. I think I probably would have been a little disturbed if I'd been there when the dragon showed. The dragon showed up. Lucky it was a good dragon, but
Oh yeah,
my character actually wasn't there.
yeah.
He was in town when they encountered the dragon.
Yeah. Luckily, Breeze didn't attack
wasn't
it.
sure what to do with that. I was
What's
like,
that,
I don't
Lee?
want to. I don't want to fight this thing. I want to
Yeah.
try to talk it.
Yeah. I think in my previous campaign, which was a D&D campaign, I think the most disturbing thing that I threw at the players, was I had these zombies, and each zombie had like a different, just a different trait to it. So like, one only had one arm, another had no legs. One was, her face was still like she was in real life, like, so she still had all of her beauty, but she was still, that. And the one that really freaked him out was the two toddler zombies. And they were like, oh crap, this is like too over the top for the, they were like, wow, that's something that we have to we have to destroy them right away. And it was in that group, which a Malric was actually in that group. So and he probably got tackled by the zombies too, because a Malric is always good for a fumble. As a matter of fact, he might have actually fumbled, and that's how they got him on the ground, and they jumped on him. And I have to remember if it was him. I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was a Malric that fumbled, and they took advantage of him, and they knocked him off his feet, and piled onto him. And so that was a thing. Yeah, the next time he's on, I'm gonna have to ask him, were you the one that fumbled, and the toddler zombies got a hold of you? I'm almost certain it was him, so we'll have to ask him. But yeah, those are like, I know I joke around sometimes, and I'll say, well, my game is essentially a PG-13 game. So if you're an adult and you can't handle PG-13, then, it's either the wrong table or the wrong hobby for you. Because it's just, I don't know of any any role-playing game that is written, unless it's specifically for rated G, young kids. But 99% of them are written for, you know, 12 and above. I mean, D&D is 12 and above. So if you're not ready for PG-13, you're really not ready for this hobby, because it's just, and you don't even have to go into the rated R realm. I virtually never go into the rated R realm unless I'm playing a horror RPG. Then you kind of know that you're going into it. Like if I'm running actual fucking monsters from Grim Jim, then you'll know that, all right, this is going to be a really dark and edgy kind of game experience. you know um I mean, Call of Cthulhu doesn't even get to that kind of level, rated R level. It's still PG-13. So, um, yeah, it's, let's see what we have here. Big Game 6 can do that. Well, that was the Ankeg. The Ankeg, if it hit our thief would have been killed by an Ankeg.
One thing that was remarkable was that Amalric made all 8 of his saves against poison against the carrion crawler and was not
Yes.
paralyzed.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got hit like 5 out of 8 times and had to make 5 paralyzation saves.
Yep. Yeah, and again, that was a really cool adventure, because you really did start to encounter some, like, new things, like an Otiug and Umber Hulk and Carrion Crawler and a Dracolisk. So you really did end up encountering a lot of different cave dwelling creatures. That might have even been the first time you were in a true cave. I mean, other than the lower level of Quescaton, where you had, but they were just troglodytes and spiders. There was nothing, nothing really
And we
extraordinary.
bypassed most of that because of Cedric charming the
Yeah,
druid.
yeah.
So
Cedric charming the
we
druid, and
bypassed half that level basically.
yeah, because there were some kind of like creepy crawlers in there that I was going to introduce to the game, and
That cut
but
out probably 2 or 3 sessions, that charm spell.
oh yes, easily.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we have. My D&D games are heavily influenced by horror and the Warhammer RPG. Yeah, I tried Warhammer back then. I love the book, like the quality of the book and the artwork and the style of it. But I think there was something about it, like it was just too much of a miniatures focused game. I think that, and we've always done, like, we've always mapped and everything, my group of 11-year-olds through high school. It was mapped, and we did have miniatures once in a while for just like facing and that kind of thing. But Warhammer just felt more like it was a tabletop war game, more so than a role playing game. So, but again, I haven't looked at that game system for 35 years, so I could just be misremembering the impression that I had of it. I grew up heavy metal music, horror films, and SS movies like Deathstalker. Yep, I haven't seen that movie in God knows how long. Deathstalker was a great movie. Yeah, mind flayers are scary as hell. It's like you're usually, anything that's going to eat your brain is pretty scary, and the fact that they make them mostly evil now is kind of ridiculous. But that's a Therefore, my games are quite dark. Yeah, I like dark games. I do. And certain games, so Chris, you should take a look at The Blackest of Deaths by Bloat Games. That's an awesome, especially if you can get the Meat Grinder version of that. That's an awesome game. Very simple system too. It uses the Black Hack as a base system, and really cool. And the way you can interchange different genres into that, survive this system that he uses is another really really good part of his games in general, is that they do work well together. Yeah, and let's see. It is a war game. Yeah. So that's Warhammer RPG, a fantasy RPG is a war game basically. Yep, we're just cattle. All right. Let's see. So let's take a look at our last part of the recap and see where we left off. So this is one of the first times that you haven't slaughtered the young and and the females. The non-combatants of the of the humanoids that you encountered, because that started to become a bit of a trend for your group.
The paladin
I'm gonna
goes,
be
okay, I'm going over here. You
yeah
take care of it.
yeah. I'll try to block out the screams that I hear, and so he doesn't have to witness it. Looking back at it, so we have that. One of the things that that Breeze wanted to take a look at, Empty Inside wanted to look at, was the pewter bowl. So I'll have to think about that and see what I can come up with for the pewter bowl. Make it something that's interesting. So and that's the other really
Oh, and we
great.
got a wand that we don't know what it is yet, so
Yes.
that'll be interesting to try to figure out what that does.
Yeah. You have a couple of things that you have to check out and see what the what their actual functions are. And you still haven't done a detect, even though I told you what it was. You still haven't fully. You still don't know what
Identified.
Crandon's. Well, you don't know what Crandon's sword does. You know that you all suspect that it's cursed.
Yeah, he's cursed to stay invisible for the rest of his existence. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Because he's been invisible for like 5 sessions now.
Yeah, for as long as he doesn't attack, which that's another thing, like, going back to first edition, I mean, that spell is it really should break
Awesome.
if you take damage. The fact that it doesn't break when you take damage is kind of weird too. It is kind of overpowered spell.
And
Let's see. Forget characters needing to make save versus fear. My players were super scared for simple skeletons. Rated PG felt like the rated R film. Yeah. Actually, I actually wrote an adventure for D&D Basic where the fear came in, and they actually encountered a ghost, and fortunately for them, they didn't attack it. And so they were able to figure out that the ghost was really a trapped spirit that they ended up helping free the ghost, and so it didn't kill them; it killed the. And this was a party of first and second level characters, and they freed it. Again, Amalric was in that group, so he he'll recall that as well. It ended up killing the 8th level cleric. That was the main bad guy, in the thing, and they encountered a kind of like a lesser flesh golem. That's really that campaign was where I started getting the idea of taking regular creatures from the monster manual and modifying them. Like they faced lesser harpies because when they first saw the harpy, again, player knowledge over character knowledge, they were like, "Oh, damn, they're going to charm us." But these harpies, and they also knew that they were much higher level than they at that time. They were only first level uh, player party, and they were like, "Oh, geez, we can't fight a harpy." There's and there was only two of them too. It was this Word, the magic user, and Amalric, the fighter magic user, and they were like, "We can't fight a 5 HD creature." Um, and it was like they were kind of forced to, fight it anyway. And then I'm like, all right, that wasn't too bad. It was thankfully for Word at the time, he had magic missile, and he was able to kill it with which having that automatic shot. Um, so it was a much shorter combat than because if it dragged out, they were in serious trouble. So that's where I kind of learned to take these various things from the monster manual and modify them so that they're a little bit different, so you're not quite expecting it. And then that's really where the Lish slash bone golem came into my mind. Was like, oh, I'm gonna really string them along and make them think we're second level and he's throwing a Lish at us, and you know that's crazy. How are we going to survive this? And it turned out to be, and it still was a lesser form of a bone golem because you wouldn't have been able to beat a bone golem either at that level. But it was still kind of like the subverting the expectations, right?
And I think those ghouls that we encountered were the first, in fact, the only time I think we've even faced undead so far. There were ghouls in that room
Yes,
too.
yeah, there were ghouls in there, um, and none of you have actually cast that cast that spell, that modified spell, Zelagar's fear spell yet.
Mm-mm.
That affects undead as well. So
Mm-mm.
there was another unique thing that you picked up in Quescotan that you haven't used yet. But yeah, you haven't encountered that many undead, or those were the only undead that you've encountered so far. So it's been mixed up, quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I think I forgot to include ghouls in your running list of things that you've encountered. So let's see. That's the way Gary Gygax intended the game to be played. The GM has the right to modify anything and fit their playstyle or the level of the PCs. Yeah, it's like otherwise. Otherwise, I mean, we played 32 sessions. We've played, levels 1 through 5. If I just stuck to the things that are in the monster manual for that level band, then they would have encountered the same things over and over and over again. Um, the fact that they're a larger group and third, fourth, fifth level at that point, for the Dragon Slayer, that's why I could throw an Umber Hulk at him, and one-on-one that creates a real challenge because then those Umber Hulks, so you fought 3 Umber Hulks, and I think at all 3 times those Umber Hulks had confused like half the party. It was like at least half the party, and
Mm-hmm.
I had just gotten insect swarm
mm,
in the last time I leveled up, and that was so helpful with that
yeah,
Umber Hulk.
yeah. So it's just you know um it's just when you start to encounter those lesser used creatures, it just makes it much more interesting. Yeah, that's pretty That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's kind of like what I did with the zombies, because normally if you just throw regular zombies at most parties, they're like, "Oh, zombies are nothing, too special. They're not very unique, and everyone uses the same methods of fighting them. First try to turn them. If you can't turn them, then you just, bash them with your blunt weapons and your swords, or you go for headshots if you want to pretend that that's the way to really kill them. And it's just that's why I altered them to make them a little bit more unique and interesting, rather than, oh, you're just fighting a zombie, you know. And just modifying the stats of them, based on the fact that, this one's a giant, this one's a toddler, they had different stat blocks. This one only has one arm, so it's going to do less damage than if it had two, and so on and so forth. So okay, I think we're coming up on an hour and 35 minutes, so not bad. So let's see what else we had in the recap. Nothing else. I mean, some people have I think everyone in this particular run, virtually everybody got injured at least once.
I don't think anybody hit me.
Nobody hit you?
I don't
All right.
think so.
Or maybe you didn't take any damage.
Yeah, I don't think anybody hit me, but a lot of people took a little this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a Malwork took 8 hit points of damage in one shot. I think that was the most significant damage he took with one hit. Yeah. So it was overall, I think it was an interesting session, because again, you learned a little bit more. So it had that, it had those different components of, the three pillars of role playing. So you had combat, obviously. You had some discovery. You encountered your very first, evil cleric that you had to face. Mirador, you neutralized them, right off the bat. So it was like, there goes all his things. And
yeah,
like I said,
it's funny how we placed it. We talked about it after. It was like in Wrath of Khan, where they take the Enterprise into the Nova, and they're like, our shields will be useless. Well, yeah, theirs will be too, though. So I cast silence. So nobody gets to cast spells. We all have to do this the hard way with good hard steel. And that's what we were able to do. So
and it really did work to your advantage, because if he were able to even though he was lesser rank level than your group was concerned, so he was fairly minor, but he would have still had he would have hit you. He would have cast his protection from good. He had a heal. He had a silent spell himself. And he had a hold person, which I was really looking for him to use that and see how many of you he could have neutralized with that hold person, because that would have probably impacted, I think, level wise, at least 2 of you, possibly 3. And that would have made that particular battle go go sideways on you,
especially if you decided to stack the negatives too. He could have done that.
So that's the thing, was that occasionally your group, you'll encounter something that normally should be like underpowered, and then they just get really lucky rolls, so it's like they usually pile on one of you.
I think we lucked out too and got initiative, so we all got to cast spells that first round. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, this is all we're gonna do. This is all the spells we're gonna do. And
Yeah.
everything else we'll do the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been the one like really fun thing is the fact that you have struggled from time to time with the creatures that you wouldn't normally expect to be a real challenge. So like the one time that the was it the bugbear females almost took Candrius down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the bugbear females almost took Candrius down. I was like,
And
we've never.
we
Cadrius
took
is
out the males in one round. I mean,
Yeah,
they went
yeah,
right down.
yeah, yeah, and then it was the females that all piled on, and they just happened to all like three of them attacked him, and it was like bang, bang, bang. It was like took like what 15 or 17 points of damage in one round. I was like, damn, they're just like brutalizing you. Um,
Cadrius had flashbacks of being in the wheelbarrow. No, not again.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, he was certainly expecting that it was going to take a turn for the worse. Um, so that's the kind of thing that's really really exciting is the fact
Yeah,
that
we didn't have a wheelbarrow this time.
no
No.
no
It would have been worse.
you would have had to pack them up and and carry him home. Um, yeah, you don't even have carts with you this time either. You kind of left your whole entourage and everything behind. So um, you
Traveling
know,
light this time.
yeah, you were traveling light this time. Well, you're technically only about a half an hour's walk away from maybe an hour's walk away from Kendall
Kendall
Keep.
Keep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it shouldn't be that hard to head on back if you're
In
looking to
fact,
do that
I
kind
guess
of
that's
thing.
what I guess that's what uh, I guess that's what Amalric would did those sessions he was gone. He took them back and came back. So that's why he was able to come back the last session. It just took me a couple hours to take him back, guys. I'm
If
back.
only you had a Holocaust cloak. Oh, what a phenomenal movie that is.
Yeah.
If you don't know that if you don't know that reference, the Princess Bride, probably it's got to be one of the best fantasy movies out there.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're going to wrap this up. So once again, thank you for the two of you. So we have Sparrow, our half elf druid, played by Leah, and Mirador, our human cleric of Farlagan. And yes, so Mirador is looking forward to finding out the secret. In case you kind of only caught part of his thing there. Back during the Dragon Lair adventure, they came across a cleric of Farlagan that was petrified by the Dracolisk, and so they were going to make arrangements to have his petrified body returned to the nearby city, and hopefully they will turn him from stone to flesh, um, and then a resurrection spell. um, so stone to flesh is probably easier. The resurrection might be a little bit more difficult. Um, then, of course, he has to make a system shock or, whatever. I just had an interesting thing. So, if you died based on being turned from flesh to stone, how long are you dead for a Speak with Dead spell? Interesting. All right.
Hmm.
Because I know you attempted to do that with something that was dead for over 20 years. I wonder if that would um,
reset the death counter and allow you to talk to him, even though he's been
Yeah,
stoned
allow you
forever.
to talk to him. Yeah, that's an
At
interesting
least,
question. I
yeah.
wonder if that,
That's
if you
also
were,
something you'll have to research before we go back there and figure
yeah,
out.
that might be an interesting thing
Yeah.
to consider. I might have to reach out to Frank Metzner and see what he says. Um, every once in a while I'll send him an email and he actually answers them. It's like, oh no, this is the way, it's like you know, but yeah, he's my D&D go-to person if I have a question that I need something, a true expert of the game would know. Um, let's see. Thank you for allowing us to listen and watch. Well, yeah, you are most welcome, Michael. And yeah, I try to do these at least once a week, and usually run them. I'll shoot for like Mondays at 8 o'clock, or 8:15. I think this actually worked out well this time slot. So Mondays at 8:15, and then we play on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock ish, or 7:45, 8 o'clock, and we run 3 hour sessions, and so from 8 to no, we run from like 7:30. We're supposed to run from 7:30 to like 10:30. Sometimes we get a little bit of a later start, which kind of defeats the Tuesday instead of the Monday. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but it works out. It's like, so if we have a 2.5 hour session, that's fine too. Let's see. The spirit is gone for over 20. Yes, I know the spirit is gone for over 20 years, but if the character was turned to stone, I don't know. That's an interesting thing. I've never, I just thought of
Well,
it.
I
I was
guess the
like,
question is, I mean, if do you have to roll to see whether he survived the stone process, or does the system shock come when he's revived? Is it possible that he's already dead and stone, and even if we turn him back to flesh, his flesh is already dead? That's a question, I guess. Because he might already be
no,
dead.
no. I know the process is that you have to do flesh to you have to do stone to flesh, and then you have to do some kind of a resurrection or raise dead in order to revive him, and then he has to make a system shock roll to survive that. It's assumed that the petrification killed him,
Oh,
but
okay.
does that petrification that turns him to stone, does that mean that he was like, kind of stopped the clock on the length of death,
Mm-hmm.
per se? So that's what I'm wondering is, would a speak with dead, even if he wasn't revived, would that still work?
Mm-hmm.
Having reset the clock on how long ago he died.
I think it's whether or not his spirit is still connected to the body. That's how I would probably
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah, let's see. Perhaps even a haunted statue. Yeah, he could be. He could be a haunted. His spirit could have haunted the statue. Wow, you're giving me ideas now. And now I can't do it because we just talked about it, and we have the cleric in the group. So maybe intelligent swords are just warriors that were hit by some kind of flesh to sword spell. Yeah, they could have been. That I don't think I've ever read like how they really came up with the idea of intelligent weapons and swords and those kinds of things. Probably from Disney, the intelligent brooms and those kinds of things. But yeah,
Michael
that's an
Moorcock,
interesting.
Michael Moorcock, and
Oh,
the
okay.
El, Elric.
And is that that's the first instance of?
I'm not sure if it's the first instance, but it's definitely,
All right.
The Black Blade is not
Intelligent, yeah.
it's definitely intelligent and it's
Hmm.
malevolent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably where it comes from then. believe it or not, I've never read Michael Moorcock.
Mm.
Yeah. So I just never got around to doing all
I
of
bought the
the.
books and I started the first one, but I haven't finished yet.
Yeah, there's certain that I just can't get into them. I
They're not easy to find now, actually.
no, I would just get them on audio and just listen to. I commute 3 hours a day, so hour and a half each way. So audiobooks are my
Mm.
thing. I want Black Razor. Yeah,
And I'm exactly the opposite. I work from
Mm.
home, so my
Yeah,
commute is like
yeah.
from my bedroom to the office.
And you
Two
love the
minutes,
Elric books.
2 minutes or less in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had purchased the. I think I had purchased the audiobooks, and that was before my. I never got around to listening to them, and then my Amazon account got hacked, and I lost about 40
Ooh.
audiobooks, and probably about 35 Kindle books on that account.
Mm.
So I'm like, all right, I lost about $1,100 worth of books, and
Mm.
in my top three. Yeah, I'll give it a try. I think I have a couple credits of audio on Amazon, so I'll certainly give it a try. So, okay, we are going to, because it's 10:06. It's just about our wrap up time for our regular game sessions. So, so once again, thanks for joining, and everyone that came in to listen. I hope you enjoyed it, and like I said, I will try to do these recaps every Monday or so. Sometimes they could be on the weekend, although probably certainly not next weekend. I think I'm really busy next weekend. So so other than that, and then we play on Tuesdays, and I have a couple of videos coming up this week. So I'm going to start going through Role Playing Mastery by Gary Gygax, and I will start with the prologue first, and then go into chapter 1 and start breaking it down, because I had um, some questions about Gary Gygax's approach to what he considered to be a master role player. I already did a series on the master dungeon, a mastery of dungeon mastering, and so now I'm going to, work on this, and then I have a whole slew of games that I still have to start digging into and working on as well. I kind of took a week off from doing videos. I threw one throwaway in there with World of Warcraft. So I ran one session of World of Warcraft, just this past weekend. I forgot how easy it is to do videos on just MMOs, because you just throw it out there and you play, and so those are kind of the easy way to get something up there, to get some content out there, real quick. But I have to spend some time with some MMOs and some computer RPGs. I know they have that new computer game out there that everyone's talking about, and what it's called, Elden Ring or something like that. It's the new talk of the town, but I think that it started out kind of buggy, so I'll wait till they clean it up a little bit before I give it a try. So let's see what else. Top 2 is Conan and Thomas Covenant. Conan and Thomas Covenant. I don't know what that is. Conan is certainly my favorite.
Thomas
Um,
Covenant is the guy who's got leprosy.
oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that.
Mm.
And can't wait for the game tomorrow. Yes, I can't wait for the game tomorrow either. Um, as always, I think all week about the game. I have heard Scarlet Heroes now. You might want to add Scarlet Heroes on your list of games to research for solo. I have heard of that, and I do have the other Iron Iron Sworn, in PDF. So I have to double check and take a look at that as well. Scarlet Heroes I have heard of. And if you haven't done 4 Against Darkness, I recommend giving that a try as well. Conan has leprosy. Well, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, all right. Oh, hey, Nugan. Haven't seen you in a while, so welcome back. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. So once again, thanks everyone for coming on in, and I will definitely take a look at those solo RPG guy, and definitely reach out to me on Facebook. You can find me as Edward James Bloodworth on Facebook, or just leave like a contact, like some way to reach out to me. Look for me on Facebook. That's an easiest way, and that way I can just text you or message you, and we can get together and maybe have you come on the show, and we'll talk about solo RPGs. I'll bust out my 4 Against Darkness, and you take out your one of the games that you've been playing and using, and we can have a nice chat about solo RPGs. I haven't done that yet on the channel, so that'll be great. All right, everyone. I always spend like 5 times saying goodnight to everybody. Just don't like to let it stop, but got to run. So, Leah, thanks for coming on in. Mirador, thanks. Everyone following along, thanks a lot. Catch you all next time.
We'll look forward to tomorrow night.
Yep, looking forward
See
to
you
tomorrow
tomorrow.
night. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
And